never know if it could change your life. Take a chance, you're neither wrong or right. You never know if you don't roll them dice. You better roll them dice. You never know if it could change your life.
Howdy, Rob.
Howdy, Matt. Matt, have you ever abused your position as editor of a popular D&D magazine to get your self-insert PC made into the centerpiece of a whole adventure path?
I haven't, but, I wished I had, and I hope my insert PC is a cool bard / bartender / princess.
Yeah, that would be cool, right? Like we all would love to be able to do this. We just haven't had the opportunity.
Listen, you create a publishing giant, and it's you can do it whatever you want.
You can literally do whatever you want. Hello, everyone. It's Dungeon Master of None.
I'm Dungeon Master Matt.
And I'm Dungeon Master Rob, and today we're talking about Pathfinder Adventure Paths. We're on to part, who knows, whatever, in our very long-running, perpetual review of every Pathfinder Adventure Path, and we are up to...
Ever.
Jade Regent, number...
Yes.
What number is it?
Well, this is way back in first edition, and we're going to talk about Jade Regent, Skull and Shackles, and Shattered Star, and I had some stats for you, Rob, about our progress through all the adventure paths, but we do not want to hear how little progress we have made in our, like you said, never-ending quest to review all of them, because there are so many, and we love them all. But
technically... reviewing them faster than they are writing them, but not by a lot, and we're pretty far behind, so it's going to take a while.
Yeah, these are way back from over a decade ago, so a fun time in gaming.
These are all good. These are all fun to read. They're all something that you can learn from, and some of them are really great. There's a lot here, and I always feel like I take something interesting away from these reviews. Number 49. We're on to 49 is 49 through 61, I think is we're going to go through Shattered Star.
If you've never listened to one of our Pathfinder Adventure Path reviews, obviously if you're planning on playing in one of these are spoiler heavy, focused on the Dungeon Master, and I think we won't bring this up because we brought it up many times before. Probably in both of our opinions, almost all these are a little too long, maybe a few too many dungeons for our particular taste. I have amazing consistency and layout and cool new monsters and great art and great dungeon design. All of that is a given. So if we don't bring that up on your favorite one, just make sure you've noted it. It applies to all.
Yeah. There's always something good in all of these. The question is whether or not it's worth delving through the hundreds, dozens of pages, when there are... The thing is, there are so many of these, we want to tell you which ones are worth spending your time on. And that is...
And it's a lot of time.
Yeah, it is a lot of time.
One of the ones we're going to talk about today, Shattered Star, specifically a group of my friends started this and had not finished it by the time I had moved away and gotten a graduate degree. I completed a course of study and got my diploma, and they had still not finished one of these. So, Adventure Paths, unless you're cutting heavily, big time commitment. But let's talk about our first one, Jade Regent. What's our concept here?
Yeah,
What's the big
this
picture?
is what I was not so subtly alluding to at the beginning. This is about, it's about a lot of things, but the sort of central conceit here is that one of the characters that we meet in the very first Paizo Adventure Path, number 1, Rise of the Rude Lords, Amiko Kaijutsu, is actually the long-lost heir to the throne of Minkai, all the way in far-off Tiansha, which we reviewed in a recent episode, or the campaign setting book. And your players are friends with Amiko Kaijutsu and are presumably want to help her claim her throne. And that is sort of the entire thing about Jade Regent. But there's There's a lot more going on, but that's sort of like the central conceit.
What you'll actually be doing for the meat of this adventure is traveling.
Yes.
Right? I think like three or four out of the 6. It's a caravan to the stars.
That's right.
And yeah, you basically have to travel across the world, and there are enemies that try and stop you, adventures that are like not important to the overall plot you'll have along the way. Some adventures you'll have that are very important to the overall plot that you'll have along the way. But if you like, I guess the feel they were going for here is like, what if you traveled the Silk Road to Asia, but like Lord of the Rings?
Yeah.
But also at the end of Lord of the Rings, instead of 2 hobbits walking through a desert to a mountain, you did the final act of Shogun.
It's not a bad hook. It's not a bad conceit. There are some issues with it that we can talk about, but like, travel is a big, like, the travel narrative is a big fantasy trope. This one is like cranked up to 11 because you're going over the North Pole, and it's it's wild. There's a bunch of crazy stuff in your way, so it's you probably do want to enjoy sort of like that whole like travel log, travel narrative, travel adventure thing, but I think it's a good version of it. We should briefly talk about the caravan and the caravan rules, even though that's not technically part of the adventure itself. But
it's another our favorite of Paizo's things. What about a subsystem?
Who wants a mini game? Who loves a mini game? Matt, what do you think about the caravan mini game?
Well, so this one's a bad one, I would say. It's sort of uninteresting. It gives players things they can spend their money on. Okay, I really wanted to upgrade my wagon with an enhanced undercarriage. Now, I get that might actually be important for in-game consequences and checks. It's just, to me, it's very uninteresting. And of course, there are also 2 hidden subsystems in this adventure, which is you are encouraged as the game master to track reputation relationship points with important NPCs. And then at the very end, there's like a rebellion point subsystem. This is, I think, the height of subsystems in Adventure Paths, and all of these could probably go. I would not see the reason to actually track these numerically.
The caravan system feels like just a worse version. It's like having a ship, which we'll talk about in the next Adventure Path, but not as cool or as much fun or as interesting. Like, if you spend your hard-earned gold on buying like cannons for your ship, or like better sails, or hiring a cook, that's fun. That's like that's tangible and interesting and whatever. But if you're like, I've bought better rimmed wheels for our wagons so they like, that's just, I don't know, that doesn't feel as exciting to me.
Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't be different, but it kind of is, because wagons, I guess, to me, are just not as cool as ships.
It's just
and
not
that's
cool.
Just, I mean, I will say, I think the first like high point for me about this adventure overall is the places you are traveling through. And if you're playing this one,
I do want to dwell on the subsystems one more.
Okay.
One more thing, which is that all of you will, in addition to Amiko Kaijutsu, there are a few other NPCs that will theoretically be traveling with you the whole way from your start in Sandpoint. And I'm not particularly interested in any of these people, and I forgot that they were there until the adventure reminded me that they were there. But they all have a romance score, which means that if you get enough good boy points or good girl points, that your NPCs will hook up with you. That's
So, and like, I think there's something to salvage here, because not only are there interesting NPCs to start with, there are some like interesting NPCs you'll meet along the way who will absolutely want to travel with you to Minkai. But yeah, turning it into score-based, get 40 points, and then this person falls in love with you, seems a clumsy way of handling NPC romances. But like, if you're a player who's like, hey, I really like that part of Baldur's Gate where you just have this party and you talk around the campfire after the day of adventuring, this kind of does have that feel.
Yeah.
Of course, you're doing this with other people, not just with a single player character, unless you're playing this one-on-one, which probably not the best adventure for that.
I'm not against the romance. It's the accumulate points to unlock romance options. It feels very gamey. I do like, I said I didn't care, but actually the NPCs are interesting, and there are more that you meet along the way, and there's a lot of effort put into like describing their motivations and how they might participate, and there is a lot of opportunity, like Matt said, for like sitting around the campfire and having interesting conversations, and perhaps if that leads to companionship or friendship or romance, I think that's cool. I just like the points system feels very silly to me.
Yeah, I think if we're talking about like stuff to steal from this, the list of NPCs, and there's usually one or two more per adventure that you can add on that are like kind of great hirelings, companions, people who manage the player's base camp. Like these could easily be converted into people who run your keep or your ship or, yes, your caravan. And speaking of caravans, I think my first high point about this adventure is the places you are traveling through are overall incredibly interesting. You go to Viking land, frozen crown of the world. You do the Silk Road over the Arctic Sea, and then
it's very cool.
You go through fantasy Mongolia and a forest filled with evil and good spirits.
You go you go through Studio Ghibli forest. It's great. It's very exciting.
There's a ton of variety here, and while not every single traveling, encounter is perfect and memorable and cinematic, enough of them are, and the places you're going through are cool enough that the travel portion here, at least in terms of the places you are going through, gets a thumbs up from me.
Yeah, no, it felt like a very the actual like travel adventure felt very exciting. You're going from, your home in Sandpoint up over the roof of the world, through some really treacherous territory into like a whole new part of, everywhere felt exciting. There was always something like an interesting location to stop in. Very cool. The travel, the caravanning itself, very neat.
The flip side of this is if you were to run this adventure, you've absolutely got a forefront to your players. Like, hey, the point of this adventure is not so much the destination, though that will be important, but it's the journey. So if you're not on board for the destination or the journey being fun in and of itself, we're not going to have a good time. So, just keep in mind, though, while we have this big goal, it's a year in the future that we will get there.
It is a in-game and in real life, it is a meandering adventure. It will take you a long time to get to the end.
Should we talk some more general high points or get into some of the specifics about some of the different ones?
Let's drill down.
Okay.
Let's get to brass tacks.
So the very first adventure in Jade Regent is, I have to say, while the game sets you up with like a really cool reason for your players to know each other, they all know Miko or are perhaps related to her. The actual first adventure is pretty much, hey, I hope you read Rise of the Rune Lords Book 1, because you will need that to fill out Sandpoint. And the first goal is like, the mayor has a bounty on goblin ears. Go investigate a swamp. And it's there's nothing wrong with starting Adventure Path with that. It's just some of the other ones we've talked about start off with such a banger. This one is like kind of disappointing.
We overuse this term, but once again, I have to say that there's a little bit of glup-shitification happening here, Matt, because it's like, look, it's a Miko from from Rise of the Rune Lords, and then it's like, look, it's the, what are they called? The
goblins.
The brine stump goblins, remember? From Weeby Goblins, which I did think was pretty cool because I do like Weeby Goblins. It is one of my favorite one-shot adventures. And I was like, hey, I know those guys. But again, it's like, who's that for? What's with
this?
The
is another strike. It's like you have to like know the Pathfinder stuff. Like, and again, if your players had played the previous Sandpoint adventure, they might like this a lot. But I feel like the chances are, like, how many adventure paths do you really get to play with any group of people?
Yeah.
These are so big. I feel like there's an assumption that everyone has read every adventure path that comes before, and that's not going to be the case for your players. So they're not going to care.
True. And it should not be an assumption. So, I mean, yeah, this is not the worst first entry, but it's just not that interesting. You have to it assumes you take a bounty, you chase down some goblins, then you fight a samurai skeleton, and on the samurai skeleton, hidden in a secret compartment, you find a little scroll, and then that kicks off like the actual like adventure that you're in. And
right.
I'm like,
and you better go back and find that. If you didn't uncover the secret compartment, an NPC reminds you, hey, you better maybe those undead down there are more trouble. Go check again, please.
Yeah, no, it's not a good hook. It's not a good first part. Yeah.
I think this is also a good spot to talk about the overall relationship between the NPC, our special, writer insert, Amiko, the princess that, to the heir to a land on the other side of the world, and the player characters, right? Like, we often say, I think the best advice is to make your players the stars of the show. And while, like, they will be the stars of the show, like, Amiko, like, can't do any of these things, like, as a person, right? And is also, for occasional points, like, possessed by a spirit that renders her comatose. You need the player characters, but, like, wouldn't it be a little more interesting if one of the player characters were like the heir to the throne? Or I think if I was forcing myself to run this, I would say, hey, the hook for this one is you're all part of an extended family, and you find out your family is heirs to this kingdom on the other side of the world. We don't know which one of you it will be. It's kind of a, shell game that we'll play because some of you may die, and then you'll decide who wants to take the throne when you get there, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and I was going to save this particular criticism for later, but it's relevant now. Yeah, it's Amiko's story, and this does a better job of, like, she's not capable of doing all this stuff herself. Definitely needs your help. Definitely, like, needs to work with the PCs. You do feel like heroes, but at the end of the day, she's the princess, and you're just her entourage.
Right, and players may be into that. Again, if you want
can
that,
be fun.
hey, there's a lot of cool NPC stories to tell here, and you'll be interacting and befriending and romancing them, that classic feel. Maybe we're down with that. Anyway, you find the special lockbox in Book 1, the Brinewall Legacy, and then it's on to, for the next 4 adventure paths, we are in caravan mode for most of it, where and the first stop is the Night of Frozen Shadows. It's off to Viking Land.
Yeah, Viking Land. Yeah, this is, all of these adventure paths do a thing that I sometimes complain about, where it's like, here's a bunch of obstacles that are thrown up in your way to, stop you from just going on to the next thing, and they sometimes feel arbitrary, but they're all done pretty well in Jade Regent. Like, there's to me, they feel like, here's some legitimate things that you need to deal with. I never felt like I would have to, like, wrangle my players to, like, get them to do any of these things. Like in Night of Frozen Shadows, you're attacked by some Vikings. You got to go find the Viking that attacked you. By finding the Viking that attacked you, you find out who he works for, and you start to learn some things about, like, who's opposing you, and get some help to keep going forward. It all sort of, like,
and there's like it's very logical. Like, there's a reason not to just continue on. Like, hey, there's a magic sword here that's super cool and related to the throne of Minkai. Like, you need to get that.
Yeah, it all makes sense. It is a little MacGuffin-y, but it doesn't feel tortured or forced. Like, it feels like something your players are going to want to engage with.
It's also, like, introduces the a thing that's going to happen many, many times for the rest of the adventure is the ninjas of the 5 storms, or sometimes Oni or something like that, of the 5 storms will attack. And these are the bad guys that are more or less currently in charge in Minkai, and the players have to deal with them. So
the sort of big plot that we glossed over is that in Minkai, currently a bunch of Oni are ruling the nation, but they can't fully take control until all of the heirs to the Imperial legacy are dead. And so they've been trying to hunt down Amiko Kaijutsu because she's the last one for ages. And she's the only thing standing between them and full control of the nation of Minkai. And now that she's poked her head up, they start to send ninja assassins and other things in her direction. And this plagues you throughout the entire adventure, as it should.
Yes. And then we have another adventure where you have to find a guide. Oh, sorry, this is the Hungry Storm, book 3. And find a guide to make it over the crown of the world. So Antarctica on top. This is fun. There's a lot of like environmental obstacles, dungeon for you, because of course we have to have one of those.
Lots of dungeons.
At the end. This is, I think, full caravan mode here.
Yeah, this was cool. There's a tower at the top of the world that creates horrible ice storms, hungry storms. There's
we just have one of those on our planet too. It's just being up at the top. It's just cold up there.
It's just cold up there. There's an awful lot about like these demon lords that are fighting with each other, and they've got a servant, and it's all part of like this big like machinations between them, and it's just that part was like very much like why this is not relevant. We just got to get the people, your players got to go turn off the storms so that they can make it across the North Pole. All this other stuff is kind of, it's not disinteresting, but it feels like a bit of a distraction.
Rob, it was at this point at reading the adventure, I was like, I'm down for the epic journey to a place. I'm not sort of down with I'm down with many of the encounters you have along the way and places you can visit. I'm not down with the execution. And it reminded me of another role-playing game, or a role-playing game campaign or setting, which is, I've talked about on the show before, Ultraviolet Grasslands and the Black City, which has recently released its 2nd edition. And if you're planning on running Jade Regent, I would suggest reading through that role-playing game and seeing how it kind of does the point crawl, right? And it gives you a big map that starts in the place you start and it ends in the Black City, and it gives you all these places in between, and they're kind of webbed out where there's lots of little paths between them, and at each one there's rumors of the places ahead and opportunities to the side to distract your players with or motivate them on to the goal. And I was just imagining if the path from Sandpoint in Varissa, where the campaign begins, all the way through the lands of the Linmore Kings and the Crown of the World and Hongal and the Force of Spirits, all the way to the Gates of Minkai, were mapped out with multiple paths between each point with interesting locations, how much fun this adventure would be. And I think an enterprising DM could absolutely take the Ultraviolet Grassland system and add it here, and then this would be like one of my favorite adventure paths. However, for the most part, you're going down one path and you'll hit all the things along the way.
Yeah, and there are parts of the caravan section where you're just traveling and there's random encounters and you can pick and choose, but to sort of get through each section and to the next point, you have to go through a dungeon. And they're not always bad, and it doesn't always feel like forced, but you generally do have to go through a dungeon to like get a thing or make an ally or something or other. And yeah, it is a little linear. Yeah.
Which brings us to book 4, The Forests of Spirits. So Rob, this one in my mind was the biggest missed opportunity of cool places you visit. You go to fantasy Mongolia and essentially just kind of hang out.
Yeah. I mean, I obviously was mildly disappointed by this. There's not a lot of interaction with Hongal, one of my favorite Tiansha nations. You don't do a whole lot. There's not actually that many NPCs. You spend as little time there as possible, and then you go to the Forest of Spirits.
There's feasts.
Where you do meet some... Yeah, yes. Sorry, there are the 5 feasts. Sorry, the 5 feasts are great.
But you don't... They're just kind of there, you know?
Yeah, there's a fat prince, and he's funny, but like ultimately... not very important, not super relevant. You'd think this would be a bigger deal because your players had just hauled ass across like the literal like North Pole, and I don't know, maybe there could be some, I don't know, celebration, rest, recuperation, like more seriously than the way it is treated in the path.
I was just hoping there would be interesting adventuring that would include some of the fun ideas about Hangal as a setting. But then you're on to the Forest of Kami, and it's I guess here's probably a good time to talk about this module and a journey to the east, the far east. It's this module's got ninjas, samurai, geisha, kami. It's explicitly written you can eat a cat. Some of the tropes of Asia as viewed by, as far as I can tell, mostly non-Asian heritage authors. So,
yeah, I was bristling for the Orientalism, and I'm a white man, so I don't get to say, but in my opinion, it was not as bad as I feared. It's not great. The treatment and depiction of, there's a lot of stereotyping, right? Right. There's a lot of noble samurai and wily geisha and
sneaky
inscrutable
ninjas,
spirits and all that. But it feels more respectful than, say, Oriental Adventures or something like that. But if you were concerned about this, luckily there is now the Tiansha Campaign Setting World Guide, which was written by authors of Asian heritage, and you could use that to maybe bolster or replace some of the things that suck that are in this adventure path.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's a good way to cover it. What else anything else we want to mention about the Forest of Spirits?
No, I mean, it's neat. I liked this. There's sort of like a combination of ghost and haunt. Haunts are Pathfinders, like nifty little, like this is a trap, but it's a ghost, and they've made a little tweak for like getting possessed or dealing with these spirits, and it's a neat mechanic, neat little like encounters. There's a bunch of cool stuff happening. This is an interesting. All of these are very like interesting, well thought out regions with interesting encounters and adventures and dungeons. They're not always what I would like to see, but everything's very neat. A lot of cool stuff here. There's a big pagoda you have to investigate and delve into, and a bunch of bad guys. It's a pretty good dungeon.
No, I like that dungeon. All right, and that brings us to the final two books, Book 5, Tide of Honor, and Book 6, The Empty Throne, in which we abandon caravan travel for, let's do a coup on these Oni and put Amiko on the throne.
I really liked these two. I actually like these last two adventures, which is
Pathfinder
rare for me
Adventure Paths rarely stick the landing, and this one kind of did.
I was very impressed. There are problems, which we'll probably get to, but I think they did a really good job. We do run into, so you get to Minkai, your PCs meet a noble Ronin, who is going to help lead the resistance. You have to make friends with some ninjas and some geisha, and
there's a hidden fortress. It's really all of the hits from people who are fans of movies from Japan.
Yes, if you love a samurai film, you're gonna love everything in this, and I do, and I did. We do get sort of like into this. And this is not really a problem with Paizo or Pathfinder. It's really a problem with D&D. But what I like to call veteran bandit land, which is, your PCs have to do like a normal person thing, which is defeat some bandits to convince this Ronin that they are good people. But they're like level 15. So like any like reasonable bandit crew they're going to wipe out without even like breaking a sweat. So you have to fight a bunch of veteran bandits. And that just that just feels very silly to me. Like, oh, here's a level 10 bandit instead of like, because
right. Creatures that are powerful enough, they could like conquer a kingdom on their own, right, based on everything we've experienced so far.
It's not a problem with this. It's just like it's a D&D problem with just scaling, and every time it happens, I'm like, ugh. I just get annoyed. But your players have to make some friends. They actually get to fight some Oni for once because they're finally high enough level to actually challenge an Oni. And then the final bit is really cool. I think you have to infiltrate the city, which is controlled by the 5 storms, this evil Oni warlord band, and hide from the Typhoon Guard, and then there's a dungeon, Imperial Shrine, whatever, and then you get to do really cool like assault on the city, which is really neat, and all your allies come along, and all the like hard work you've done, and all the like the caravan that you've ushered through the mountains, like all that stuff actually matters, and it feels really cool. And then you fight the Jade Regent and his Oni grandfather Amaduna something, and it's a very cool finale, I felt.
Yeah, and I mean, as like a finale for an adventure, this one's a pretty cool one. Like, put a new ruler on the throne of a nation, like, you can stay on and help build that nation, or, there's many other plot hooks. You could, hey, let's just do some high-level adventuring here now that we don't have any pressing threats. That could absolutely be the way you continue this campaign. It's a good ending to an adventure path that, depending on your tastes, you may not have liked the perpetual caravan travel up until this point. Yeah. And like we said, there's another unnecessary subsystem of rebellion points, which can absolutely be handled without assigning a numeric value to it.
Yeah. So I have like, there's one thing that was like bothering me the entire way, Matt, and I don't know that it's very important, but like maybe you can tell me if I'm missing something. So we know that the 5 storms, this powerful group of Oni, is looking for the Amatatsus, that's Amiko's real
dynasty.
Name, or dynasty. Yeah. And this was so dangerous that her family put the Amatatsu seal inside a warding box so that they couldn't be scryed, and so that the Oni would never find them. And the one time that they somebody mistakenly took it out, the Oni teleported across the world and destroyed an entire colony. Like, this is the first installment,
dungeon
the Brinewall Legacy. There's a whole colony that was destroyed by these Oni, because they failed to properly protect themselves from their scrying. So the PCs acquire the Amatatsu seal and give it to Amiko in like the first few sessions. Why do the Oni not teleport across the world and kill them right then? Is the thing that I was not clear on from the beginning. They
start sending agents, but they don't pull out the stops like before.
Right.
I guess you could easily explain it by like, all right, they stuck around. That was a colony. We're going to be on the move, so they can't track us down. But it's really a lot of backfill work in order to put the seal at the bottom of a dungeon. Is all this does.
That's probably right. That's probably right.
Because it's maybe the first draft was just like, hey, Amigo's like, hey, I found this in a box. Under my old T-shirts from like college. And they're like, we can't start this way
because it seemed weird that they would that the 5 storms would like obliterate like an entire town, but then like we're gonna send some ninjas after like Amiko the second time. I don't know. It's that bothered me the entire way. You could write around this. It just like, to me, it did not feel adequately explained.
Yeah, I mean the whole like backstory thing, it is not as important as it sounds, but it really if this is the most important thing for the Oni, it does not make a lot of sense that the moment you open this box, you also don't get obliterated. You should just put it in an old castle that, I don't know, got overrun by goblins or whatever.
Yeah. All right, we already
so that's Jade Regent.
On Jade Regent.
How many stars do you want to give it? How many stars?
Rating system out of
5 stars.
5 stars. I honestly, Matt,
same
I want to
as
give this,
Andy Daly's review.
I want to give this 4 out of 5. I know there's a lot of flaws with it, but like in reading it, I liked most of it, and I probably wouldn't, but I could see myself running Jade Regent more or less unmodified. Like I think it mostly works as written, which is not something that I have said about many Pathfinder Adventure Paths, and we're talking like start to finish.
Yeah. I think overall you're in the right ballpark. I would probably give it like 3.5 out of 5 just because the subsystems bug me, the role of the NPCs bug me, but like if I made it, I feel like this one is a little bit of work on my end, but I would also enjoy a fixer-upper for this. Yeah, the way the caravan works with just players being on a, they're not on a train, they are on a caravan. They should be able to choose like where they go and how they get there. That could be so much more interesting. The missed opportunities here knock it down a half a point for me.
I think that's fair. I just think it's like one of the least broken ones that we've read. I think it works pretty well, bearing in mind all the things you're saying are completely
caveats about NPCs being too important, caravan point. Okay, that was Jade Regent, and then we are on to Skull and Shackles, which came out in 2012. It's our pirate one. What's the big concept here, Rob? And we've already talked about this one a little bit, but it was so long ago, and we also...
Episode 52, I re-listened to it, yeah. 52.
Yeah, I know. We talk about a bunch of other bullshit before we even get to this. So let's give our review here. 52, so... what's the concept for Skull and Shackles?
Yeah, I as you all probably know, I love this one, and it's one of my favorites. And and part of the reason why I love it is that it's got one of my very favorite hooks, which is that you're all press ganged onto a pirate ship, and it's a really great first level adventure where you can't fight your way out, and you have to sort of like make friends with the other pirates and wait for your moment and strike and mutiny against Barnabas Harrigan, Scourge of the Seas. And yeah, you're in the Shackles, which are an island archipelago sort of off the southwest
inhabited
coast.
Only by pirates.
Only pirates.
This the whole adventure path, this is a rags to riches pirate story. You start off as lowly swabs and have a chance by the end to become pirate kings, queens, and monarchs in your own right. Not only with your own ship, which you get really rather quickly, but maybe even your own fleet, having basically every kind of pirate adventure that you might imagine along the way.
Buried treasure, swashbuckling, undead pirate ghosts, haunted islands.
Oppressive, vaguely British demon navy, devil navy.
Everything you can think of this in a pirate adventure, it's here. And
a race with a double cross.
That's right. A regatta, a sneaky double crossing, cheating regatta. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, so yeah, this one's great because I think the concept is really good. The freedom of many of the adventure paths is really unlinear, right? Because the players have a ship and they're often given several options for where to go and what to do. That works really well. They have a subsystem, right? You have plunder points, which are just a way of abstracting wealth and loot. But you have something that's like really interesting to invest it in, your ship, and upgrading it. Players can take jobs on the ship. Yeah, I think all the mechanics of this one, kind of like Kingmaker, work really, really well to support the theme and play at the table.
Yeah, this is I mean, we clown on the caravan points, but like it just works better when they're plunder points and you're using them to spend on your ship. It feels more rewarding. It makes more sense.
You can't mount cannons on your wagon.
on your wagons. And yeah, it creates a much more, it's also like the caravan points or whatever you're getting through your adventuring, but like in this, you're pirating. And you're pirating and you get plunder points and you use your plunder points to make your ship better and then you go pirating. Like that's the sort of like,
right. It reinforces itself,
yes.
Unlike the caravan points. It's like, well, I guess we got to the next place we have to go to faster. No,
right.
This lets you do many things better.
Exactly.
Okay. Any other big picture points we want our listeners to know before we get down to brass tacks? Or I guess you wouldn't use brass on a ship. That would be bad.
To iron nails.
Iron nails.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think the big picture is it's you get a ship. You're pirates. It's great. The concept is both simple and elegant. It's wonderful.
The first book, The Wormwood Mutiny, has a big ask, I would say, of you as the DM and as your players. Your players start out with a big setback. We talked about this on our latest Patreon episode about like how it can be difficult to use setbacks for your players, but this does it right, in my opinion, in that you get everyone's buy-in beforehand because the setback happens as the adventure begins. The players are press ganged onto a pirate ship. So you don't have to like take anything away from them. They get to earn their way out of the setback. It's also not played like a typical adventure path where it's like you're given a timeline of things that are happening on the ship. The players are, have a lot of, even though they're press ganged, a lot of freedom to explore the ship, meet the crew, be oppressed by the bosun, these types of things.
It does ask a little bit of you and your players, and we've talked about this before. If they're on board with it, I think that it's very fun. It's very engaging. It's got a lot of great role-playing opportunities. But no, they will not be immediately jumping into a dungeon and fighting goblins or skeletons or something, getting loot. It will take a while before they get to sort of like have autonomy and do standard adventuring stuff. I think it feels really rewarding when they get to that point after a session or two. And I think it's one of the coolest things in the world that they finally get to like take advantage of Harrigan being away, mutiny, and like seize a ship for themselves. Like that's what a way to start an adventure,
And it's such a, like, you don't have to motivate the players. Like by the first hour of playing the game, they're already making friends with the intention of doing a mutiny. Right? Like, you don't even have to say that should be your goal. They will just do it. I guess I should say, I have run this adventure path. I consolidated the final 2 books into a session each. But the first adventure path, the first book, The Wormwood Mutiny, I ran all the way through all the encounters. My players had a blast. I had a blast running it.
I've also run this adventure path. I wrapped the campaign, I think, in the middle of like book 3, but it's the first book. I think I might have even run the first one twice. Players love it. They love it. They know exactly what they're supposed to do. They're excited to like get one over on Harrigan and the bosun. Like they're making friends. They want to know everyone on the ship. It's great. This is an amazing opening adventure.
Yeah. This one's a 5 out of 5, a 10 out of 10 opening. Which brings me to my next point. The second book, Raiders of the Fever Sea, is, in my opinion, not a 5 out of 5. While I applaud it for being like, hey, you get your ship fixed up after you've taken it over, and then go be a pirate, and eventually you'll find a treasure map, and you'll go get the treasure. Well, I included the treasure map, which is on a person, and the and parts of the treasure. A lot of it was just kind of like, I don't know. They kind of made a random encounter table and didn't fill out any of the parts for you. So, yeah.
In my game at this point, I introduced a bunch of other pirate captains and foes to sort of like populate the Shackles, and they spent a lot of time engaging with that and not the... Raiders of the Fever Sea is good, but it does involve a little bit more just like, here's a dungeon crawl. But there are some cool like ship encounters and piratey stuff. It's just it's starting to like lose that direct focus that it had in the first module.
This one works really well if you really interspace these kind of encounters with other things that are going on. And this is a perfect point to just like start throwing all kinds of plot hooks at your players.
Yeah.
It's just not kind of written in a way where it's like, here's 10 things you could do, choose one, and then maybe you'll do that, and maybe you'll have time to do another one, but I'll also give you another plot hook after you do the first one. It's just not written in that way, and I would say could be improved. I, for my campaign, after shortening the some of the things in this to 2 or 3 sessions, inserted Plunder and Peril, another module by Paizo, specifically written to replace Raiders of the Fever Sea. Now, this one is, it's not more linear, but it is more directed, where the players are given a clear goal to achieve, work with this other pirate captain to find a stolen treasure, and then they go do it. I really like Plunder and Peril. I believe it's, kind of got mixed reviews by other people, but I had a lot of fun running it. I would suggest at least looking at it if you're running Skull and Shackles.
Yeah, you've brought this up before, and I think it's a great addition, and I'll have some suggestions at the end, but like, the good thing about this adventure is that it's very easy to add stuff, especially at this point. The bad thing is that I do think that you need to, or that you should, because what's there is not as interesting. And now I have a brief point before we go on. Matt, will you do you have the Raiders of the Fever Sea in front of you?
I do.
Will you go to page 51, where the NPC Isabella Inkskin Locke is being described. Now I'm going to read a little bit about Isabella Inkskin Locke to you. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm at page 51.
Now, look at this picture of this drawing of Isabella Inkskin Locke, and yes. Listen as I describe what is written about her. Isabella wears a large set of wooden false teeth that have been sharpened into points like the maw of a shark. Years spent living among the thick Shogun have purged any lingering remnants of human compassion or mercy from Isabella, who is as cruel and remorseless as the namesake of her ship, the Thresher.
Now, when I look at this picture of Isabella Inkskin Locke, I see a woman who looks like she just came from a music festival with perfect teeth.
Yes, she's
wearing jewelry, like human jewelry.
She's like
earrings.
Pirate Burning Man Barbie. Like she's like it's a babe. The artist did not get either, like they read the description, were like, fuck it, I'm horny, I want to draw this instead, or they just like didn't get any instructions on how to draw Isabella Inkskin Locke, because the person that we are shown twice, she's also on the cover, is not the savage, ruthless, remorseless, shark-toothed woman who is described in the adventure module.
Right. She is a pirate babe in a bikini.
Yeah. Anyway, not important.
Anyway.
I always think it's funny.
Paizo, their art has, where these ones are from 12 years ago, no excuse, but, I much prefer their art direction today than what it was in the past. So book 3 is, hey, you join the pirate big leagues, you can make some allies, you learn about pirate politics, and there's the pirate race. This is all incredibly fun. It was for my players. It's real, like pirate politics. Like the players can understand it. They have a stake in it. It makes a lot of sense. They already have an enemy. They'll probably make some allies.
It's fun. This is good. The pirates as written all have a bunch of personalities. The politics make sense. There's a reason for the players to want to get involved. They get to stick it to Barnabas Harrigan. Like this is a great section. There's also a lot here that you could add and or drop, but this one is pretty good as is. It ends with, like we said, the regatta, which is a, cheating, it's pod racing. It's cheating. It's trying to win at all costs, absolutely like dirty, underhanded, double crossing, and your players are going to want to win. It's fun.
It's a pirate race to become a chief pirate, to get a seat at the captain's table. It's super great. Book 3 is one of, I think, the best single books written, and that brings us to book 4, which is kind of another lower point in my mind, the Island of Empty Eyes. Now, this is a fun, a wilderness exploration with dungeons of an island. It is a shift from the rest of the campaign. You can either take this as, actually some of my players are kind of ready to do some more classic Pathfinder fights with their sweet builds of their characters, or you can be like, actually, I would like to get back to the pirate politics. Yeah,
I like this. Your players win or are gifted an island, but it's full of monsters, so they have to go and, clear it out. That's cool. That is a fun...
It's great motivation.
Great motivation. I don't like or dislike the island as written. It's not that interesting to me, but it's not the worst. You could definitely do something different here. There is a fun part at the end where you have to throw a big party for all the other pirate lords. This is a salvageable section. I think I could take it or leave it, but I like the central idea.
Yeah, it's not bad. It is just a shift. And then this brings us to the final 2 books of the adventure, The Price of Infamy, and great title for the last one, From Hell's Heart.
From Hell's Heart.
Shit hits the fan. The players are finally get a chance to get revenge against the captain that press ganged them. And guess what? He's actually not just regular evil. He's evil against pirates in that he's allied with the Chelish Navy that is going to come down and claim pirate land for itself.
Yeah, this is great. You find out that Harrigan is moving against you, and you have to defend against and fight him. And not only is he a shitty pirate, but also he's a shitty pirate who's going to betray other pirates. So even if you were inclined to feel bad, you have no reason to feel bad about, sticking it to him once and for all. So this is a part of the last 2 books is the sort of the Chelish Navy. They're making moves to claim the Shackles for themselves. I love this as a concept, as a villain. And as we'll find out, this is not actually the final villain of this adventure path. And yes. I wish it was. And if I were going to rewrite this, the very first thing I would do is place the threat of the Chelish Navy and the Chelish Navy itself at the center of this adventure path. If I were going to sort of work backwards from what I want this to be, I would start putting this, and actually there is I think an encounter in the second or third module that does
where you get kind of a hint. That's kind of Pathfinder's way is second or third you get the tiniest hint of the big bad.
But I like this so much. I think there's such a good big bad. I think this is a great threat that regardless of whether or not your players are we're noble pirates or we're savage evil pirates, they're gonna want to fight this. I think it's just I would make what's her face, who's the
Imperatrix.
Yes, Imperatrix, whatever. She's rad. I would make her the big bad and just seed this more thoroughly throughout the adventure, because I think that would make a more cohesive Skull and Shackles, because it really falls off in parts 5 and 6.
Yeah. After you defeat the imminent fleet invasion, and there's several kind of fleet encounters where it kind of scales up the ship combat. We should also mention this adventure in the player's guide and in the first adventure includes rules for running ship combat and sailing and all that good junk. The final part is the players have the chance to fight the pirate king himself, Kindark Bonefist, who is a rad villain name, but the players haven't really interacted with him much. I think that's fine as an optional encounter to finish the adventure. It's hey, Do you want to become Hurricane Kings yourself? The last Hurricane King did nothing while the pirates were almost all destroyed. Maybe you should go take him out. And the players could be like, no, we're going to go become explorers or whatever. Fine. Yeah. Right? Or you can have them go fight this guy.
Sorry, Druvalia Thrune is the head of the Navy. No, but the thing is, like, you at the end, you have to go through a cave to fight Kurdak Bonefist on his ship, like you're in the fucking Goonies. Like, if you're gonna fight
a Goonies adventure,
if you're gonna fight the king of pirates, you should fight him on the open sea. I don't know. Disappointing final installment, but overall, this is Skull and Shackles is great fun.
Yeah, big picture for me, one of the reasons this adventure really sings is the NPCs, especially the pirates, the crew that you can recruit, both villains, allies, and neutral, are all, lots of fun, over the top, interesting. Hey, you're going to meet your ship's cook. His name's Fish Guts. Hey, there's another pirate captain. He's a druid pirate captain, and he's weird and mysterious. Hey, it's a pirate captain. It's just a big gal. She likes to smash things. Like, there's lots of really fun types of pirates to meet. I think the NPCs make this really sing. Other big picture stuff before we give this one, slap a final rating on the side of the hull.
No, I mean, I think we covered it. All the big stuff, I think.
I guess I just wrote in my notes, are you a bad enough dude to fight the Giga Clam? I don't remember reading that.
Clam. Yeah, there's a big clam. I forget which one it's in. Again, Matt said this at the beginning. We haven't mentioned it because it sort of goes without saying. There's a lot of cool encounters and monsters in this adventure, and there are a lot of like neat nautically themed ones. It's cool. There's a lot of cool stuff.
All right, Rob, for me, this one is close to perfection. Some of the structures of some of the books have to dock it for me a little bit. I would say 4.5 out of 5.
This is so funny, Matt, because I went back and listened to our episode, and I think I gave this like 2 out of 2 or 5 stars. And on rereading it, I think I got to give it a 3.5. I don't think that it works as written, and I can't see myself running it without serious modification. If we stopped at, and this is the rule that we established when we were doing our tier list, right? If we stopped at 4 of 6, this would be a 5 out of 5 for me. But because of the last 2 modules, I gotta say, now that being said, I prefer a interesting mess to like a, solid, pretty good effort. Like I would rather have something that's like that needs fixing in an interesting way. So like I would run Skull and Shackles again over probably Jade Regent. But I gotta say that, taking it on its merits, I gotta give it a 3.5.
Well, having run this, I would say the final 2, like the solution to me was easy. They became 2 sessions. The fleet's attacking, right? You got to go find out where they're going, and then we have a battle, and then got to take out and you kill Harrigan during that battle, probably. And then you go take out the Hurricane King in the next session. And that's exactly what we did. And it was a great ending. But yeah, they're stretched out over 2 very long books.
But yeah, I mean, this is a good one. This is a standout adventure. It suffers from the classic Paizo failing, which is just not sticking the landing.
Right. Making an adventure that was 3 really great books into 6 books. Hey, maybe they'll learn from their mistakes.
Maybe someday.
Do what you want, cause a pirate is free. You are a pirate. You're our favorite king. Being a pirate is all I've been. Do what you want, cause a pirate is free. You are a pirate. Yo ho, ahoy in a blast. Being a pirate is really badass. I know the flag from the end of the blast. You are a pirate. You are a pirate.
They will, but we're going to have to read through another, 16 adventures to get to where they finally learned how to do that.
Speaking of...
Yes.
Shattered Star.
Shattered Star. Rob, do you like sequels? Do you like squeakquels? This is the first one that like really, so Jade Regent, takes place after Rise of the Rune Lords. Shattered Star really takes a lot of the events of some of the other adventure paths as canon and have happened already, right?
Yes,
Council
right.
of Thieves were in Magnamar. The Curse of the Crimson Throne, you go and deal with some people who are involved with that. Rise of the Rune Lords, we're dealing with Rune Lords. It's a real sequel adventure, and if I had to give it in a sentence, in a big concept, it's go to 6 dungeons and get a cool thing.
I mean, I actually kind of like respect the straightforwardness of Shattered Star, because it is just like there's no pretense. A Pathfinder comes to you and says,
right, hey, Pathfinders, it's our first one with Pathfinders.
Go get this magical artifact. And then you go get the magical artifact, and then you come back and she's like, great, go get the other 6 pieces of it. And then you do it. And you know what? I kind of got to respect that. Like, I actually don't hate that. Is it as compelling as something like you're putting the lost princess of Minkai on her throne? Maybe not, but it is a perfectly adequate and uncomplicated reason for adventurers to do things, and I don't hate it.
I am just imagining the meeting for Shattered Star in Paizo's offices back in 2012, 2013, when they were playing this out. They're like, wow, these last couple adventure paths, we've sure done some crazy stuff. Traveled across the world, did a brief Shogun mini series where pirates did a gothic creepiness, built a kingdom, and someone's just like, well, what if it was just dungeons? And they gave that person a gold star, and then they did that.
And then they did it.
It is really like Rob said, it's like as back to basics as possible. You are members of the Pathfinder Society. You are told by your Pathfinder Lodge captain, go get things. And then once you get the first one, the thing tells you where to go next. So for me, this adventure is not one of my favorites just for that reason. It is mostly dungeons. Some books are 2 dungeons. A couple books are a little bit of wilderness and then one big dungeon. One of the dungeons is in the Plateau of Lang. But most of them are not. Most of them are just regular dungeons. Some of them have some really cool encounters, very cool floor plan designs. Maybe a Rune Lord is rising, or not exactly. Maybe the king of old Thessalonia. There's a lot of glupshitification, too. It's like, hey, it's the Grey Maidens from Curse of the Crimson Throne. Hey,
remember
it's
them?
City.
The Grey Maidens.
No, they don't. No,
I don't.
We didn't play that adventure.
Remember. I had to be told that they were from, because we haven't read that long ago, but I do not remember the Grey Maidens.
Right. Rob has even read it, right? The only people who will remember it are people who played that adventure.
Yeah. The thing is, do we want to, it's a bunch of dungeons. It's basically like, there's no innovation here in the format. I think that's fine. You go somewhere, you do maybe a little city crawl, maybe a little wilderness crawl, maybe a little point crawl, and then you're in a dungeon, and it's a big dungeon. It's usually a big, interesting dungeon. And then you find the thing and you're on to the next thing.
And then, like, once you put the thing together, it causes something bad to happen. So maybe you shouldn't have done any of this.
Yeah.
Maybe you should have taken this first artifact and hucked it into the astral plane, or done something else with that. So to me, that's sort of a misstep. I think the other misstep, the one thing I think would have been interesting, if this one does kind of have a Indiana Jones vibe. You're working for a group of learned scholars, the Pathfinder Society. You're getting an artifact. Maybe it should belong in a museum or something. It would be fun to have a rival group of people also seeking the artifacts. There's not any of that here.
You know what the big missed picture for me is that you're looking for little segments of an artifact, of a star, of the 7 runes, the 7 rune lords, right?
The Sahedron,
your 7 deadly sins. I was repeatedly shocked and disappointed that none of these dungeons were themed around the sin that was held within them. I'm like, what a missed opportunity, and also just sort of a confusing thing to me. Why why are we looking for the shard of lust? And there's no, there's actually there is like a succubus in there, but like it's
there
like,
is a succubus.
But there's not like there's like maybe one encounter, but like wouldn't it be cool if like the whole dungeon were like corrupted by that sin, and then you like why bother with the whole 7 deadly sins thing if you're not going to do this? By the way, listeners, did you know, in case you're not you were not raised in the environment that Matt and I were raised in, 7 deadly sins, those are not in the Bible. I don't know if you knew this. These are not like they're not like inherent to Christianity. Some like 4th century pope or somebody like made them up. He was, like these are the worst kinds of sins. Anyway, the hold that they have on people's minds. 7 deadly sins.
There's also the 7 nice virtues of a good Thessalonian wizard, which
that's right.
before So they stole that from whatever pope is there as well. I suppose the final encounter is kind of as exciting. I do hate the like, hey, you caused this to happen by doing the adventure.
You did what you were supposed to do, and now people are suffering. Good job, asshole.
Yes, I will say, if you play Pathfinder to do dungeons, I mean, this is adventure for you. If you read Pathfinder books to find dungeons, here are more than 6. I think it's like 9 pretty big ones.
I do have to say, like, this isn't my favorite type of adventure, but I really liked all of the dungeons were interesting to me. Like we read a lot of these, Matt, and sometimes my eyes glaze over because I'm like, I got this again. Every single one of these was unique in some way, and not like in a contrived way or not like an overwritten way. Like these are really interesting dungeons with like stuff going on. They're not like grueling slogs. There's lots of like cool puzzles. Like these are good dungeons. I would not necessarily run this, but I can see that this, if you are somebody who's like, I love Pathfinder, I love making a cool build, I love fighting monsters and solving problems, I could see this being a lot of fun. I could see Shattered Star being a great way to just sort of like, let's hit the, let's learn about Golarion, let's do some quests, let's find some loot, let's fight some monsters. Like, it's not just like a mega dungeon, right? There's other things going on. And those things are pretty good. Like, it's a solid adventure.
Yeah, it's, it is the adventure path for people who like, just the meat and potatoes of what this system is designed to do. And if you said, I guess the negative way to put that is, if you thought some of the other adventure paths were getting too interesting, well, this one is for you. There are, again, fun NPCs, fun monsters, Rickle Peaks, fun boogeyman. There's lots of fun stuff.
Yeah.
It's not going to be the one for me, but it never was going to be the one for me. So
if you're really into Golarion lore too, or if like you like this stuff, and I do and don't, like there's a lot of interesting stuff about the Rune Lords and Thassalon and Aslant, and your players can like uncover a lot of like neat clues about the history of the world and Varisia especially. I think that's fun. I think that's interesting if that is something that they are into.
The one thing that is done well, but the one thing that dings it in my mind is that a lot of the lore relates back to previous adventures. The part about Thassalon works well, but some of it's like, well, if you played Rise of the Rune Lords, you'll know about this. And then some of the lore about Thassalon is like, I wonder what's going to happen with this Rune Lord of Lust. Will she ever come back? And of course she does in a future adventure path, but that's not something you'll experience here. So, is there anything else you want to say about Shattered Star?
In the 3rd module, they go to the city of Kaer Maga, which is described as
I'm going to put you in an elbow lock, Rob.
Which is described as an anarcho-capitalist paradise, which I think is an oxymoron, and I just wanted to call that out.
It's a city of like interesting monsters. But yeah.
Actually, sorry, there was one other cool thing about that. There's a bunch of trolls that do augury, they do haruspexy by reading their own entrails. They pull out their entrails and read them. That's so fucking cool.
Because they regrow.
Because they regenerate. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
This is what I'm talking about. There's a lot of neat stuff in this adventure. It's just like, there's not a like coherent through line. I can't, the other thing is, Matt, like this is meant to take you from like first level to like 15th or whatever, like all adventure paths are. I simply just like can't imagine that this would be like the highest and best and most exciting adventure or use of my like PC's 15 levels. Like that's just, that's an entire adventuring career. And I just can't imagine that Shattered Star is what I want to be doing with it. If it were compressed into like 5 levels and was like the midpoint of some like, but like as it is, this is a whole thing. And that doesn't feel very satisfying to me.
Right. If you had gone to 7 dungeons, gotten the 7 pieces of the artifact, and we're done with that by like level 8, 9, or 10, and then, whatever disaster you doing this caused was like a final arc of the adventure, I would like that. Of course, we did just criticize the previous adventure for doing something very different in the final arc. But after this many levels of dungeon crawling, I was begging for that, and I imagine some players will be too.
Yeah,
it's dungeons all the way down, putting it in a museum. Anyway, that's we've now, Rob, finally made it to the year of our Lord 2013. We're almost a decade behind.
Almost
We've been
a
working
decade
hard.
behind.
Anyway, that's Shattered Star. I would give that one maybe 2 out of 5.
This is a solid 3 for me. I think it's a very serviceable lunch pail adventure.
Definition of middle of the road.
It's very middle of the road. Listen, we've done a lot of these, and most of them I have something to complain about. I did have things to complain about with Shattered Star, but really they're just preferences. There's nothing wrong with it. There's just not a lot that's like exceptional about it,
All right, well, that's it for this episode of our continuing journey through the adventure paths. Stay tuned for next time when we talk about Reign of Winter, Wrath of the Righteous, and Mummy's Masks.
Yeah, been waiting for these for a long time. These are good ones. If you liked what you heard and you want to hear more, check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/Dungeon Master of None. We have many, many, many more episodes.
And if you want to chat with us or your fellow fans of the show, you can click the link in the show notes to join our Discord, or you can send us an email at dmofnone@gmail.com.
As always, thanks for listening, everybody, and keep rolling them dice. Get her on the boarded, but forever we'll be free. Should sail away aboard a rig, the moon is full and so are we. 7 drunken pirates, we're the 7 deadly sins.